It's great to have everyone join today. A quick intro. I am Jhillika. I'm the founder at Mentra. Happy to go a bit into my background here on the next few slides, but before that, I'll pass it over to Syntyche.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Syntyche. It's so nice to meet everyone. I am head of operations here at Mentra and customer success. I do meet with all of the candidates here at who join the Mentra platform. And I'm super excited to be able to speak with everyone today about our program and our platform.
Fantastic. Yeah, so quick background on how, first of all, what is Mentra and how we got started. So we are building an employment network, which is basically like a LinkedIn for the neurodiverse, where we match individuals who are neurodivergent. That includes autism, ADHD, dyslexia, epilepsy, and several other forms of neurological conditions and learning differences to find meaningful careers. And how this started, so my brother Vikram is a non-speaking autistic individual, and that's just a photo of the two of us. And he's sort of been someone who, for all of his life, individuals, my family and society assumed was not cognitively, competent and intelligent until the age of 27, when technology entered our lives, and the iPad specifically enabled him to, through its intuitive UI, actually navigate through the interface, and then through accessible sort of teaching and training opportunities to be able to learn to type on a letterboard and later on an iPad. And so kind of demonstrate at that point, we saw the value in technology and how it's really able to act as a translation layer and also be built in a way that's accessible for individuals who cannot communicate. And here's a kind of a photo of him using the iPad to be able to communicate and how he types today. And while we were in college at Georgia Tech, when we started, we partnered with the Autism Self-Advocacy Group in Atlanta to basically do research, and realized that there is, a lot of work that goes into early intervention and a lot of research there. However, a lot of times when folks reach the age of 22 and age out of university and even government support programs, there is a very high likelihood that they will remain parent dependent for most of their lives, and without the opportunity to find the independence that comes with income. And we realized that was a huge issue because most people spend, 70% or more of their lives out of college or out of schooling, and they're not able to, find that fulfillment in the workforce. And so we realized that a lot of this, sort of all of these invisible barriers exist in the hiring process in today's systems, the Indeeds, the LinkedIns. It's just not built for to accommodate the needs of different individuals. And we realized that there is an opportunity to build a technology platform that could bridge a lot of those gaps. So what we are firm believers in here at Mentra is the future of work is neurodiverse. That means neurodivergence and neurotypicals working together hand in hand and understanding each other to really build the workforce of the future and really understand the diversity of the human population in the products we build and the services we offer. And we've started out doing research with the community, and I will pass it over to Syntyche. The question is, what has been the landscape for neurodiversity employment that we've seen to date?
Yes, thank you, Jhillika. So really, why are companies looking at recruiting autistic candidates? There are several reasons, but just looking at past rates, some of the autistic adults who have been employed, they're employed at very low rates. The estimates, which I'm pretty sure are a little bit different now, everyone kind of talks about that 80% deficit, which has been very interesting given the many skills and talents that we've seen with people with disabilities and also autistic adults and just any neurodivergence. And really, looking at that number at 40% faster problem solving, that alone is just one of the major reasons that companies are looking at recruiting autistic candidates. So some of the other reasons that we found is accelerated problem solving, innovative approaches to challenges, just really being able to think outside of the box and offer solutions that might not have already been thought of or offered to problem solve, and also solving that problem much faster. I remember talking to one of the candidates who mentioned that, hey, you know, this issue that was happening over the last 8 months, I fixed it in 3 weeks, which, you know, many companies would, you know, really want to work with candidates who are able to do that. Specialist knowledge, different skills in areas of special interest that they've become experts in, and also detail orientation, really being able to follow instructions and respond to different routines as well. One of the interesting things from JP Morgan is that they reported after 3 to 6 months that autistic workers were doing the work of people who took 3 years to ramp up and were even 50% more productive. So even many companies, major companies, are seeing that autistic job seekers are super valuable to their workplace. So definitely having some neuro-exceptional strengths is super important. We see a lot of diversity of cognition as an inherent strength. So we see things like advanced reading comprehension, advanced problem solving, as we mentioned. Creativity is a huge one, innovation, challenger mentality, really wanting to solve problems, really find an answer there. Really being able to look at precision in details in a way that others are not able to. They're very reliable. Long-term memory is super outstanding as well. Being able to listen with empathy. So all of these things are super important to employers. And these are major reasons why employers are looking for neuro-exceptional talents.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes it comes up, you know, well, there are all these strengths in the neurodivergent community, and autism is a subset of neurodiversity. And even within that community, it's such a huge spectrum, but you see so many different, you know, strengths that individuals have, and this varies, you know, across individual to individual. But one question we often get asked from employers, especially, is how can neurodivergents thrive in an environment? How can we ensure that they thrive? And when we answer this question, we really share there's 2 main things here. Number one is ensuring that the individual has an environment that's conducive to their needs and their accommodations. And number 2 is ensuring that there's a social environment that's understanding. So there's the physical environment and the social, where teammates really understand, you know, what it means to be neurodivergent and how they can create an environment that is, you know, psychologically safe, where you can feel your authentic self and you can bring your full self to work. So what are some of those sort of physical accommodations that we talk about? Well, first of all, we would love to share a bit of context on what neurodivergents often face, which is sensory overload. And I will share that a lot of this research we've done is with, you know, neurodivergent members in the community. And so what we've learned is, you know, sensory overload is when your brain is overwhelmed by the input of your senses, and that can include sight, hearing, smell, taste. And it's a sign that you're taking more information than your brain can process. So you know, that can include varying room temperatures or fluorescent lighting, multiple conversations being had at once, negative environments, strongly scented foods, or being around large crowds. And as teammates, you know, working in a neuro-inclusive organization, how we can tell if someone is experiencing sensory overload is maybe that individual is, you know, covering their ears or covering their face. Maybe they're, you know, stimming, which is sort of a repetitive behavior to deal with that discomfort. Maybe someone feels, you know, irritable, or, you know, has an outburst. It's always important to try to understand, you know, maybe my teammate is behaving in this way because, you know, they are feeling sensory overload, and what can I ask them about, you know, how they're feeling and how I could help accommodate them better. So here are just some examples that we wanted to share. Now, employers are changing their ways actively. There's a lot of both large and small businesses that are creating spaces that are more inclusive. So some examples of what employers are doing include, especially in remote work, this has been very helpful because individuals can now actually control their own environment and be in an environment where they can adjust the lighting and can decide how to best work. So that's been really helpful for the neurodiverse community. There's also within office spaces, particularly offering focus spaces for heads down work, access to natural daylight, flexible schedules to come in at times that work best for the individual, taking frequent breaks and allowing for that decompression time, noise canceling headphones, either offering that as an organization or just allowing that when individuals are working together, even light sensitivity glasses, phone and meeting spaces for auditory privacy, ergonomic chairs and adjustable desks, and accommodating comfortable uniforms, because we know textures can also form that, cause that sense of sensory overload. So those are just some examples from a physical perspective of how employers are being more inclusive. But what about from more of a social perspective, right? How are we interacting with each other as individuals and as human beings? And how are we understanding each other's differences? So one thing that we're noticing is like a huge change in the employment sector is that employers are becoming more accommodating of non-traditional forms of talent. And what that means is all of this time, historically, employers have leveraged work experience and education in order to kind of understand someone's talent and strengths, which a lot of times, especially with a population that's 80% under or unemployed, that is not always the case that individuals have that traditional, work experience or education. So now, especially when we work with companies across the United States, we encourage them to use alternative forms of demonstrating value. So that's whether that's boot camps or online courses that someone took, or certificates, or uploading work samples, or getting recommendations from previous professors. Really leveraging alternative forms of measuring talent is something that's becoming more and more widespread. And then second of all, evaluating skills in new ways. So understanding that, someone might have not had work experience, but maybe they, were self-employed and built a portfolio of work, or worked as a freelancer and built, writing samples, or had coding projects that they worked on, or even video resumes that really showcase one's value in an office environment. So just some things here that employers are slowly beginning to change in their ways. And then more so from the perspective of, when you have a new team member joining, we've seen a lot of organizations we work with have, team orientation meetings where individuals can share, how to work best with me. We've seen managers set up one-on-one meetings where they create a safe space or opportunity for an individual to open up about needs they might have in an office environment. So there's a lot of different sort of platforms and safe spaces that managers are creating for neurodivergents to open up about, what they might need in their work environment, whether it's virtual or in person. So it's great to see that there's a lot of shifts here with how employers are evaluating talent. So I'm going to switch over to a little bit more, and I'll pass it over to Syntyche to share what the key barriers to employment were. I will say how we went about doing a lot of this research is when we started, we were looking at, where are the invisible barriers that individuals are facing when it comes to using technology. And that's exactly what we decided that we wanted to solve for, is building a technology platform that can reduce these barriers through an accessible, cognitively accessible and intuitive platform. So Syntyche, I will pass it over to you to share some of the research we did.
Sure, absolutely. So really the research that we've conducted, we've looked at ecosystem models. We are taking the neurodiverse job seeker who is actually then looking for employment. So that employment would be coming in the form of either reaching out for themselves, or either being able to speak to others and just really build out some sort of support system. So neurodiverse job seekers themselves, they face many different forms of issue when looking for employment. Thank you, there it is. Really looking at year one, we have different support systems such as the voc rehabs, job coaches, and advocacy groups who are supporting neurodivergent job seekers, and also universities who have resources on campus. So those are all based on just support services that would be naturally needed. We ourselves have partnered with many different organizations and different academies, universities. You can see year one and year two here, some memorable ones. Really, I know just recently we've looked at Microsoft, really built out our employer ecosystem, working with JP Morgan, being able to work with many others there. So some of the things that we've found as far as neurodivergence is basically within the search, apply, and interview and work portions of job seeking. So during searches, I really have no idea what jobs to search for that utilize my skills. I get a lot of candidates who are not sure what skills they might be good at, what skills that they might want to pursue. So that is one of the areas. Application just is daunting. Just being able to make an application on many different jobs, very time consuming, very intimidating process. Just the thought of it is intimidating for a lot of our job seekers. And interview process. Inside of the interview process, just being able to walk through that door and sit down and speak to another individual, sometimes not knowing what type of questions are going to be asked beforehand, not knowing who they're going to be meeting with, how many people are going to be in the room, all of those things. It mentions here, I get anxiety when recruiters ask vague questions. Tell me about yourself. Sometimes those questions are taken quite literally, or either just not really understood because they can seem, they can appear abstract to a neurodivergent person. Also in the work situation, not having accommodations that are necessary. We can see there, they took away my breaks and I had no time to decompress, which is super important. Also, I got fired from my last job because nobody told me I was talking too much. Just things like that, that we kind of want to work on as far as being able to have employers provide that feedback that is going to make really the workplace, whether neurodivergent or neurotypical, thrive so that everybody can come together and make that neurodiverse environment that we're looking for. Also, the research findings for neurodivergent job seekers, they really need to be searching for the right job. Right now, we're looking at unemployment rates. We're looking at many workers who are underemployed as well. And also being able to work with different employers themselves. Talent sources really does have a limited reach. One such quote here, individuals have to be at the right place in the right time to find a role with Microsoft and apply. That came from Neil Barnett. Really also during the research findings, applying to the job, some of those stats are, it takes 100 to 200 applications to receive one job offer, which is a lot. Could be time consuming and stressful. Intensive screening is required. This is another thing that employers have found, time consuming phone screenings. They're required to gain information about neurodivergent candidates, and it's not always easily conveyed on resumes, which is understandable. However, can be quite time consuming. Specific pain points, interviewing with a recruiter. For a neurotypical, it takes about 10 to 15 interviews to get one job offer. And there are several more needed for neurodivergent job seekers that have been found. And also there's expensive assessment periods. It's really difficult to evaluate candidates on that scale. SAP, they've been having week-long assessments that go on for 2 to 3 weeks. And they conduct Lego Mindstorms, which can be very stressful process, only to kind of end up with or without a job offer at the end. And finally, navigating those work environments. Really, the comment here is I almost got fired from my last job because nobody told me I was talking too much. Just being direct in those work requirements, research findings are showing that neurodivergent candidates might not always have that descriptive language to be able to understand that. Also, above average neurodivergent employee retention. Autistic employee turnover rates are around 7%. This is a loyal group, which also makes them more desirable for employers as well.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, that leads to, from the candidate side, that huge sense of demoralization, talent loss. A lot of folks are dropping out of the process. And then from the company side, it's just hard to find talent. It's expensive. You have to do these very specialized sort of recruiting practices. So yeah, great sort of ads, Syntyche, and totally agree that there's sort of that both sides of the challenge that we're trying to solve for. So how are we solving that here at Mentra? How have we decided to tackle this? Well, first of all, to address the first issue of searching for a job, not understanding what skills an individual might be able to apply to a job, that's where Mentra comes in. So using sort of our massive database of 3,000 plus jobs, we're able to understand what are the skills required for specific types of occupations and career areas, and how can we match students with those jobs, and how can we even if they don't know that those jobs are out there, indicate that hey, you might not have thought about this opportunity before, but it actually leverages a lot of your skills and strengths already. So that's where Mentra's matching algorithm comes in. And as we grow and develop, and as the AI learns, our goal is to be able to create personalized career roadmaps. So if a neurodivergent, is interested in a field and they have a lot of gaps in their work history, for example, or don't have that work experience or education, then we can tailor a roadmap to say, here's all the upskilling programs that are out there that can help you fill those gaps. So the second piece is when actually applying to a job. Instead of having, applying to hundreds of different applications, as Syntyche mentioned, and then having, either answering the same questions over and over, or having completely different questions that you have to think impromptu for answers for. What we've done at Mentra is we've built one application process. So you apply once to Mentra, we collect all this information in a centralized format. We ask 70% of the data we collect is not collected by the LinkedIns and Indeeds of the world, because we're going a lot deeper into the neurodivergence inclusion essentials, accommodations, as well as strengths and work samples. And it's one application, so that makes it a lot easier, and then that puts you in front of multiple companies. And then if companies have very specific screening questions, we ask that later on when the individual is guaranteed to get the opportunity, so that they're not applying endlessly to hundreds of jobs only to never hear back. After that, when it comes to interviewing for a job, what we encourage is, rather than having that kind of subtle, well, I don't know if I should tell my employer whether or not I'm on the spectrum, or if I'm neurodivergent, or that I need these accommodations because I might be discriminated against. What we have at Mentra is we encourage individuals to share upfront what their inclusion essentials are. And those include those accommodations needed even in the work interview. However, we also make sure that employers are trained. So all of the employers that are actually interviewing individuals don't have that unconscious bias from these accommodations, and are instead inclusive and welcoming of the needs of this community. And then finally, when actually working at the job, in order to prevent a lot of that miscommunication that happens within, Mentra, first of all, is a lifetime service. So if an individual has difficulty in the job, or wants to chat about career progression, or how to kind of navigate certain work scenarios, we're here to help. But also, we, through the Mentra platform, share how individuals can work best. And whether that means that they have environmental sensitivities they need to convey up front, or other items that they can share upfront that always helps prevent that confusion or lack of transparency later on. And then how do we keep that experience consistent for all neurodivergents across the entire equation? Well, let me just give you an example here of sort of how our system intervened with a case study that we had recently. So this is an employer that we have on our platform, Wells Fargo. Before we existed in their pipeline, what they would do is they would say, hey, we're looking for, neurodivergent candidates. We have these 5 job descriptions. We're going to supply that to our university partners to be able to source. So Vanderbilt Frisk Center initially would, go through all their candidates in their college autism network, screen their resumes, and then send them over to Wells. But that does require, a level of staff and commitment from the university to actually scan those resumes and have that process in place. However, what we don't see and what Wells Fargo often doesn't see is the number of resumes that were looked at that did not get selected for this role and oftentimes go down what we call the resume black hole. And that process, something that Vanderbilt Frisk was looking to reinvent. And that's where we stepped in. So what happened after we introduced Mentra into the solution is Vanderbilt was able to channel all of their students onto the Mentra platform. Mentra was able to build profiles for every one of those students, which come with a an algorithmic match to the employer. So the employer knows, okay, from these 2,000 students, these are the 50 that are the top ranked or the best fit for the role, and here's the percentage match. And what we've done is through this data that we're collecting, as we mentioned, 70% is not collected by other sources. We're able to identify not just the experience fit or education fit, but we're looking holistically. Does this candidate seem like a good fit for this work environment, for this team scenario, for a lot of the accommodations that the employer provides that the candidate needs? So we're able to identify that upfront and make a match. And instead of going down the resume black hole, now candidates who from the Frisk Center are access what we call the Mentraverse. And this is where neurodivergents can sort of, build their profile, continue to become more job ready, connect with other neurodivergents in the employment ecosystem, connect with other companies that might not be Wells Fargo necessarily, but might be a good fit for their job, for their interests, and really continue sort of being an advocate and understanding how to advocate for themselves as they go through the interview process and get that support from Mentra. So that's just an example of how, we hope to sort of build out this ecosystem for neurodivergence, and employers being a part of this system helps us because we're demonstrating that, this is a totally new model, not based on traditional keywords. And we need to show that this does work and this is going to be successful. And employers are investing in actually growing the talent pool as opposed to just kind of skimming the top talent and not necessarily supporting the rest of the community. This is an opportunity to support the community. So what the Mentraverse offers, we have jobs that constantly get posted. We have upskilling opportunities through our partners. We have universities and accreditations that help provide a stamp on badges. So now badges are available on candidate profiles. And we provide mentorship and continued support to the neurodivergent community as well. And that is where a lot of those resumes down the black hole get funneled into sort of the future of work concept that we are tagging the Mentraverse. And so I guess just to summarize and sort of wrap up here, the key goal that we have, and feel free to pose any questions in the chat, we're more than happy to answer. The key goal here is we're bringing together, as Syntyche shared earlier, the neurodivergent candidate in the ecosystem model. We're also bringing together the service providers that surround the neurodivergent individual, including the universities, the advocacy groups, the work rehab, that all work with every individual one-on-one to really help build their skills and proficiencies. And then we bring together the employers to really match the employers with the candidates. And that's employers across not just a certain industry, it's sort of across every industry out there. So you can see in this diagram, there's technology, there's wellness and fitness, sales and marketing, education, leadership management, outdoor work, business, financial, wellness and fitness, entertainment and performance arts. So to date, we have 26 universities who've signed up onto Mentra and are continuing to use Mentra as the tool of choice for their neurodivergent talent pool. And we have around 7 employers that are using Mentra and actively in conversations with 37 different companies from different industries so that we can promote sort of the benefits of neurodiversity at work and provide a centralized platform that can really bring all of these sort of isolated and fragmented efforts to one, massive movement that is easy to tap into and accessible for the community. So I will pause there, and we're happy to answer any and all questions from the organizations here today.
Great, thank you guys so much. Does anyone have any questions? You're welcome to unmute yourself or put it in the chat. I know I'm curious when you guys talk about your research, kind of what that process looked like and what that type of research was.
Yeah, great question. When we started out, we basically conducted 2 types of interviews. One was more so to understand, overarching what is the job finding process for neurodivergence. We worked with several self-advocates on the autism spectrum in particular when we started to understand their challenges, and it was more of an open-ended study. And then the second half was more so usability testing. So once we built out our platform, we would have meetings with neurodivergents every other week and, sort of put the tool in front of individuals and ask for feedback and ask for what could be made better. So that's how we went about doing our research and continue to do so with our neurodivergent job seekers as we continue to evolve the platform, and are also always testing our platform out with employers. So we have an app, a whole portal that's available for employers to be able to directly access this talent, and are excited to be working with UNC as well and a lot of the other schools to have their portals to be able to bring students onto the platform. So always testing with our users.
Great, thank you so much. We have a comment that's not a question, but this is really amazing. Thanks for the information. And I will say we are at UNCC going to start using Mentra. I was at a meeting earlier today to learn how to use it. So if you're a student, we'll start advertising for this and help you guys make profiles soon, which we're really excited about. Does anyone have any other questions before we close out? Let's see, can you give examples of the additional information you collect and share with employers?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. In fact, I can even show what that looks like a little bit with the Mentra profile. But the main things we ask about are around a few different things. So we ask about strengths and personality, and we try to identify sort of the workplace behaviors that an individual would be best suited for. So whether that's working alone, working in team scenarios, or driving projects, or working in fast-paced environments, or preferring slow-paced environments with structure, kind of understanding what types of workplace behaviors would be best suited for the individual from a strengths and personality standpoint. And then more so from the actual environment, we look at inclusion essentials. So that's where we ask about sensory, needs of the individual, as well as from the employer side, we ask around, what are the workplace environment, what does that actually look like? And are individuals able to bring their full selves to work based on their needs? So here's an example of a profile, a Mentra profile. This candidate came in from the Vanderbilt Frisk Center.
Your screen share might not be visible.
Oh, right here. Thank you. Yeah, wonderful. So this is a profile of a candidate, Claire. You can see, her resume is here as needed, but the goal is that you see a lot more information that employers really need. So we save a lot of time when it comes to picking up the phone and trying to gather this. where we ask about, one's technical skills, and you can see more of, the different skills that the individual has a background in, and whether they're beginner, intermediate, advanced. We ask about one's neuro-exceptional talents. So this individual is really good at pattern recognition. This is where the inclusion essentials come in. So around, whether or not someone would benefit from closed captioning or precise instructions or written checklists. And then we also ask about environments. So this individual cannot interact too much with the public, have it be in a space with loud noises, stand for long periods of time. They also share they're sensitive to temperature. So air conditioning would be very helpful. Also sounds are distracting to them. So there's these very particular things that we accommodate for that can really make or break a good job fit. And then on the right over here, we have work experience as well as education that we ask for. And something unique that this candidate in particular doesn't have, but we ask for very often, is around one's work samples. So because we're trying to find non-traditional ways to evaluate talent, for example, this candidate has a portfolio here that we can, or there specifically a GitHub that you can look into to sort of read about their code. So those are just some examples of unique data points we collect that aren't often collected by traditional recruitment platforms.
Awesome, great, thank you so much. We actually have another question in the chat. How can smaller organizations sign up for the platform, and is this a nationwide platform?
Yeah, great question. It is a nationwide platform today. How you can sign up. So if you go on to www.mentra.me, this is our website. You can learn more about how it works for employers right over here. If you would like to sign up as an employer, I am already signed in, so I will just sign out here. If you would like to sign up as an employer, we have it available here. You would just select the employer option and let us know your company and your role. And we'll ask you a few questions about what makes your company neuro-inclusive. And then basically you'll have access to post jobs on the platform. We do have, we will schedule a call as well to discuss sort of the payment options as well. Right now, how it works is it's a subscription. There's two options. There's either a subscription to the platform where you would pay per month just to get access to the talent pool for companies. The other option is per hire, which is more so based on, if there's a successful fit, then you would pay a, very cost-effective per hire fee as well. So we're happy to set up time once you sign up and discuss more for employers of all sizes. And we are also across the nation. So we have neurodivergent candidates from literally almost every state in the United States, and even from outside the United States, which we've had to say, we're not yet ready. We're not, we are only operating in Canada and the US so far. And for background on how many are in our talent pool today, we have 2,500 neurodivergent job seekers using this platform to be able to find and match with jobs.
Great, thank you so much. Let's see, any other last minute questions before we wrap up for the day? All right, I guess we'll go ahead and get closed. Thank you guys so much for sharing about Mentra. We're really excited to be partnering with you guys at UNCC. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you so much. Yeah, feel free to visit www.mentra.me. And if you have any questions or want to set up time with us, you can just reach out to info@mentra.me, or I'm more than happy to put our emails in the chat as well if this is something of interest, and I'm excited to be partnering with the UNC schools as well to centralize and streamline hiring.
Great. All right. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.